Springy.
Hello, welcome to Lake County's Public Health meeting. We are the Board of County Commissioners and also the Board of Public Health. It's March 2nd, 2026 at 3:30 p.m. and we'll now commence this meeting. First up is Lake County Public Health presentation and discussion regarding Healthy Kids Colorado survey and how it informs public health and public health's work on youth tobacco and substance use. Mike Kelsey.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. So we wanted to present this for a couple of reasons. One, our grant requires that we present this to you all. And two, since y'all were not here in these seats when we created our tobacco retail ordinance and regulations, this can help y'all understand kind of where we came from and how we got to where we are at now. And please ask questions. I think, does the public hearing not start until 4? I think we have 30 minutes. Okay, so.
We'll start whenever you're done, take your time.
Sounds great. So we just ultimately wanna chat with y'all about how, the Healthy Kids Colorado survey, impacts the work that we do at Public Health. If you're unfamiliar, this is a survey that's given every other year to middle and high schoolers at public schools. And if families don't want their children to participate, they can opt out. But it's incredibly informative information, completely anonymous. And it's how we can get a lot of information directly from the youth on mental health, nutrition, physical activity, substance use, suicide, thoughts, racism, etc. And it really helps show where Lake County's at, where our region is at, and then where the state is at as well in all of these areas. I'm remembering as a kid I took this in my homeroom. Yeah, it's been around for a while.
And everybody lied on it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was the 90s, so maybe
Okay.
people don't lie anymore.
Well, I think if they are lying, we're still seeing
We're
some
seeing
pretty
stuff.
high rates of things,
Yeah.
so we're gonna talk about that.
That is anecdotal, I don't mean
Right.
to, yeah.
Was it anonymous then also?
It was.
Okay, oh, whoops, oh shoot. Go back. Oh no,
Nice.
how do I move this?
Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, you can move it.
Sorry, I don't drive this a whole lot. Okay, so ultimately in the data we're using right now is from 2023. Lake County did just do their 2025 survey, but that information will not be available to use publicly until more like the summertime, once they've had to, time to compile all of the state and regional data. The caveat here is that we in 2023 did have a lower than 60% participation rate. However, this is the data that we have, so it is the data that we are using specific for Lake County. And so 55% of the high school students here felt that it would be sort of easy or very easy to get electronic vapor products if they wanted. Regionally, we see 44%, and statewide, we see closer to 49%. Some other things that are pretty notable that are not on this slide are that in Lake County, 42.3% of students think it would be easy or very easy to get cigarettes if they wanted, and that's compared to 31% statewide, so about 10% higher in Lake County.
Wow.
And then we're seeing 36.1% of students who have ever used an electronic vapor product, and statewide we're seeing that at about 30%. And then in Lake County, we're seeing about 55% of students feel it would be sort of easy or very easy to get electronic vapor products if they wanted, and the state is closer to about 49%. So in all of these areas, have been seeing that it's easier to access, and then we have higher rates of use of tobacco. Obviously, the survey also talks about alcohol use and marijuana use, but we're just gonna focus on tobacco use for this presentation because that's what our funding supports and also the program that we have now, but it doesn't mean we're not thinking about the other rates of substance use in Lake County. Okay, so our local tobacco retail ordinance was something we started working on in 2023. based off of this data, public health is funded through the STEP grant, which is the Tobacco Education and Prevention Funding, which is funded through Amendment 35, which puts a statewide tax on tobacco and nicotine products. And that started in 2005, so this work has kind of been a long time coming. And it goes in 3-year grant cycles. So in the cycle that we're currently in and wrapping up at the end of June, retail sales and reducing access to youth has been like our strategy that we've been working on. So the big project for that was creating this retail ordinance and supporting regulations, because that's kind of the first step in order to regulate tobacco at a local level at all. If we ever wanted to look at flavor bans or anything else, like this would be the first step, so that's why we got to this place. So during that process, Alana and I consulted with Summit and Eagle counties to understand their processes, how they got there. And Alana even went and shadowed one of their staff for a day while they did all of their inspections, so we could like truly understand what work went into this. And then we worked with the state to develop what we wanted to see in our regulations. And in Lake County, we have actually some of the strongest regulations in Colorado, which we're pretty proud of. Did make it a little harder to enforce. That was something we learned along the past year, but I think we're really, really glad to be where we're at and looking forward to continuing to work on this. So some of the big wins here were that we raised the minimum age to sell tobacco products to 21, and that is evidence-based to reduce youth use sales. We no longer allow promotions, so there's not like 20% off cigarettes or buy one, get one free or like anything like that, because we know that lower prices and promotions increase use of tobacco and nicotine. We do local compliance checks. That can look like us going around to make sure that people are not doing promotions, have all their signage correct, etc. And then we also do, as you all know, because you were in a public hearing about this, sting operations where we take young people between the ages of 18 and 20 to attempt to purchase tobacco at each of our stores. And out of our 12 retailers, 3 of them sold to minors, so that's a pretty high rate of sales to people under the age of 21. Just a reminder, the state age of purchasing is 21. We didn't do anything to change like how old you have to be to buy cigarettes. I don't even think we could do that if we wanted to. And then we also have a minimum package size on cigars, which makes cigars less affordable and therefore reduces the likelihood of youth accessing them. I don't know about you guys, but the first tobacco I ever smoked was a Swisher Sweet, so yeah, solid. And then something else we did, which is kind of twofold, is we capped the number of tobacco licenses, but we allowed every existing retailer to get a license, even if they wouldn't be able to get one now. We made it so that none of them had to stop selling tobacco to comply with our regulations. And we increased the distance from school and youth serving facilities to 1,000 feet from them instead of the state regulation is 500 feet from them. So some of our retailers are currently within 1,000 feet from schools or youth-oriented facilities. And if they close, then that will change what type of a business could come in afterwards. The capping also supports the business side of things for people who already sell tobacco, protecting their retail sales and kind of giving them like a monopoly, if you will, on that. It also protects our main street from just being flushed with head shops or vape shops and things like that. I'll pause for a second. Do you guys have any questions right now? Yes, Matt?
Can you sell single cigars?
Yes, we defined premium cigars, which is a price point and like a certain quality level so that those could be sold singularly.
What if a gas station changes hands? Does the tobacco license get to stay with the business
Not with the new
owners?
owners.
So if Saturday's sold again, their tobacco license would be at risk?
They're not within 1,000 feet, but their new owner would have to apply for a new tobacco license.
So that last one only applies if you're within 1,000 feet of a school.
People who are grandfathered, there are some, so everybody who was existing got grandfathered in. And the only thing that would change with turnover would be those few who are within 1,000 feet. Those
Of a
wouldn't
school.
be able to,
Mhm. Yeah,
Hard to imagine that any of them are
or a child,
within 1,000 feet of a school.
well, in a youth serving
Youth serving.
facility, so like a park, for
Park?
example, yes,
That's what it costs, not the swishers.
exactly. And that's what we wanna stop, right? So, yeah, if they change hands, then the new owner has to apply for their tobacco license there as the owner of that new facility, because then we also look at, does this person have any felonies? Have they gotten in trouble for selling to minors in other places? And that way we can kind of protect and ensure that responsible people are selling regulated products in our community.
just like alcohol.
Yes, just like alcohol. We do not monitor alcohol licenses.
No,
But
but
it
it's the
is like
same
that,
process.
yes, it's the same process. And then, oh, man, no, I'm not lined up here, hold on. And ultimately, we know that the denser your population of retailers is, the higher the use is in your community, ultimately. Okay, so in other counties, what we're seeing, Summit County, they have a local nicotine tax. And as of 2024, they have an 80% tax on all nicotine products and a $4 tax per package of cigarettes. That was something that they increased year over year. They started in 2021 at 40%, or excuse me, 2020 and 40%, and then went up 10% each year, and this is now their maximum. That supports in their community prevention and cessation programs, as well as childcare, housing, and other like nonprofit initiatives. It kind of creates like a pool for like local grant opportunities. They also have a TRL as a tobacco retail license. They have that implemented. They do compliance checks locally, and they also have advertising restrictions, et cetera. Something that's different between us and all of our partners is they are all enforced by their local law enforcement. But we do all of the enforcement for our program because the only way for us to get this across the finish line with how understaffed our sheriff's office and PD was for us to figure out how we could do it in-house. So that's how everything was written, to give us that regulatory authority to do that. And then we worked closely with the rec department to get young people between 18 and 20 who were already Lake County employees to help us with the sting operations so that we were able to pay them and do all of that legally. Chris Floyd did not want us using people under the age of 18 because then we would have to get parental consent, et cetera. And that just added another layer of complexity. So luckily we have a large pool of 18 to 20-year-olds working for our rec department. Also in Summit County, they have a vape disposal program. You can trade in your vape for a healthy activity. I used to work at the marina in Summit County, and we would give out vouchers for like free kayaking and things like when people traded in their vapes. And then vapes are like hazardous material, so then you have to have special, make sure that the facility that you take them to can dispose of them. So vapes are also a huge environmental hazard, so that's something that we're thinking about in all of this as well. And then all of their municipalities recently passed flavor bans. We are kind of watching interested how that goes in all of those communities. Denver County also recently passed a flavor ban. Over 70% of their voters supported this. It does look like people are not excited about it now that it has been implemented, so.
Oh, really?
I think it's mostly their retailers and obviously the people who voted against it are pretty loud now that it is being implemented.
Plus that 80% tax rate.
Yeah.
Our programs,
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's evidence-based and it worked, and I think we'll kind of see how all of these things settle in other communities as we like consider what we want to work on next, which we'll talk about in a minute here. And then in Eagle County, they also do a tobacco retail license. They have a smoking ordinance that makes it all public places and workplaces smoke free. And then they also do a local nicotine tax, $4 per cigarette per cigarette pack and then 40% tax on all other nicotine and tobacco products, and that is not increasing at all in the way that Summit did, so that's just kind of their ending spot.
Is there data on how much less it's, are they keeping track of year-over-year sales to see if the
I haven't asked for that, that's a great question, and I think if we considered something like that, I would wanna get all of that information to present to you all, to talk about it. Okay, so, do y'all have any questions about where we're at and how we got here? Why we're doing some of these things? No, okay, great. I do wanna celebrate a small win that like through the first year of this program, obviously our goal is never to see a business fail. But we did have a business that was selling to minors over and over again and offering promotions on vapes, like buy one, get one free. And they did this to our staff who went in there to see how they were selling, and that business can no longer sell tobacco because they really showed us that they had no regard for the age or any of the regulations, so. And as we talked to the youth who were helping us, they were like, yeah, we know that this is where you go to
Yeah.
get your products,
Right.
so. That's a pretty big win for us. It's kind of like getting a drug dealer out of our community, because now they don't have the license to purchase the nicotine from their distributors as well. So where are we going? We're excited to see the 2025 and 2027 Healthy Kids Colorado survey data, because it can help us identify where we're making an impact and where we still have a lot of work to do. Some things we've also been doing is holding small focus groups with the youth. We've been meeting with the Youth Coalition at Lake County Build a Generation, and then also working with the PASS team, which is the prevention and safety team at the school, to see what are the teachers seeing, what do the students wanna see. And what we're really hearing directly from the youth is that they don't wanna use substances, but there's such a strong culture of substance use that they all continue to do it. They are aware of the risks, but they feel that it's just what everybody does, their family buys for them. So I think what we really wanna work on in this next grant cycle is working on that upstream angle of how do we support changing the culture of substance use with our youth in Lake County. Through education, through other programs that we could do. So things that we're thinking about is a vape disposal program to support, one, protecting the environment from vapes getting just trashed. And then also like a second chance program. So that's where kids who get in trouble or caught with tobacco at school, instead of being punished or suspended, they get another opportunity and some different alternatives. Because what we know is that traditional exclusionary discipline leads to increased student misconduct, increased dropout rates, and decreased student academic achievement. So we wanna find a way to support those kids in when they do get in trouble with a substance at school or outside of school, whatever that looks like. How do we help get them back on track as opposed to kicking them out of school and getting them away from the molested adults and all of those things?
Yeah.
We also, over the past 2 years, have been running the Harm Reduction Coalition, and we are going to be starting next month a substance use prevention committee. Cause what we're seeing is that upstream work is where we're really lacking. We have some decent supports for people who are using substances, but we need to get in that prevention side and also make sure that our youth feel supported in their journey if they do wanna stop using tobacco or substances. And then we just put on here, like one of the quotes from our focus group was one of the kiddos said, it's easier to find a vape than a therapist in Lake County. They were also like, it's easier to get alcohol than go to the pool in Silverthorne. So we're seeing our youth, because they don't have access to a lot of these other resources, using substances instead. And so we wanna see how we can help move the dial in that area. And then we also know that 61% of high school students who currently use tobacco, they have tried to quit in the last 12 months. They don't wanna keep using tobacco, but they're stuck in that cycle, so we wanna increase those supports as well. And something like a second chance program can really help with those kiddos, like being honest about their use and having some support, getting to the other side, if that's where they wanna go. And I think that is about where we're at.
Wow. How can we support you all getting the STEP grant again?
We already have the STEP grant again.
Oh, you already got it?
We do, yep,
Even though it's ending this year, you got to reapply?
yes,
Did we
it's
approve that? We forgot.
oh, it was probably on the consent agenda, like, we didn't have to really apply for it.
Okay, great.
We also, the funding has been increased, we were at 80K per year, it's going up to 92, so this is one of our most solid funding streams. Which is kind of wild that we have the best funding of all of our funding streams for tobacco prevention, but that's where we're at, and it's obviously a huge need in our community.
Where's that money coming from?
It comes from Amendment 35, so that's the state tobacco tax.
Okay, so that can't get touched.
No, it's like our safest funding stream.
That's awesome.
We might become the best at tobacco prevention as we lose
Watch
funding in
out.
all of these other areas.
Nobody's smoking.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Thank you so much, Kelsey.
Do you guys have any other questions? Otherwise, happy to turn it over.
How much is it vape?
They can be really expensive, like $30 or $40.
Whoa.
How long does that last? Like a week or?
One
No,
vape
pack of
equals how many
cigarettes.
pack of cigarettes?
Pack of cigarettes is like $16.
What?
We have a couple of vapes that we unfortunately successfully bought during
Yeah,
our
yeah.
sting operations. Says most vapes typically last between 200 and 600 puffs, with some high model capacities under offering 5,000 or more.
Wow.
Wait,
A standard 600 puff device is generally considered equivalent to a pack of cigarettes,
whoa, that is a very expensive pack of cigarettes.
right?
Okay.
much?
30 to
Also,
40
like,
bucks.
30?
some of the vapes we bought were like $35, yeah. Although at one of the stores that is no longer selling tobacco, you could buy one for 15 and get another free, so the price varies dramatically. depending.
Amy King, the physician's assistant,
Mm-hmm.
said that vaping is much worse than just tobacco. 'Cause it's, remember when they sold it to us, like, it's a good way to quit cigarettes and it's a lot safer to just vapor. She said
Oh, it's terrible.
not true.
Yeah.
But they get popcorn lung or
Mhm.
something?
Yep, popcorn lung. And like young people are having like heart issues and strokes and other things.
Oh my gosh, it's wild
Yeah.
how quickly they start.
Like 25, 26-year-olds who have been vaping for, 8 to 10 years, whatever that looks like, are seeing some pretty significant health problems. So we're seeing those problems much earlier than, someone who's been smoking cigarettes for 40 years.
Wow. Makes me feel really good about that. The times where we've had tobacco licensing in front of us, makes me feel really good. So thanks for giving us all this information that backs up our actions too.
If the sheriff's department ramps up staffing, is there the option for you guys to not be doing the enforcement aspect of things? That feels like there's some kind of like risk in that for you guys, you gotta tell somebody that they're in trouble and, it's sort of like.
So what we've done is to protect ourselves and our young people from like being identified, is we don't serve the notice of violation for a couple of days, so that they're not like, it was that kid, or it was these people. And so we built in those protections to feel more comfortable, cause like when law enforcement does it, yeah, they pop them immediately, right? 2 officers walk in and it's like happening right then. Then you know who the young person was, you know everything, but we wanted to protect the people in the program who were doing that. And I think we've got a really good system that took a lot to set up. And the most licenses that we'll ever have within the city and the county is 12. So now that we're pretty dialed in, I think that we can continue to enforce it. I mean, I'm sure, I would certainly be open to the conversation, but I think we've gotten it to a spot where it's sustainable. And we have to keep those employees, so like Eugene, who does all of our retail food inspections, he's also the tobacco inspector. And all the licensing fees go towards his salary, and he does all those inspections, cause it has to be separate from the prevention funding. And then you have an inspector inspecting restaurants and also tobacco. It felt like kind of a decent fit there. And it does, generate some revenue. pay us $500 a year for their license. So I think that the license supports the amount of work that we do,
6,000.
6,000.
Is there like a density that we're trying to get to? I respect where the ordinance went, but like, if there are fewer retailers, then it becomes harder for kids to get access to it. So is there like a population to retailer ratio that we're trying to get to someday, or?
There's not like a standard, cause I think it's one of those things where there's no like safe amount of access to tobacco, right? So like currently, we started with 6 licenses in the city and now we're down to 3.
Yeah.
And we changed the number of city licenses to 4 because when we started this process, there were 4 retailers and 2 new retailers opened up during the 6 months that it took us to get this across the finish line. So then we expanded it to make space for them, but then they've stopped selling
Okay.
since then.
Okay.
And there's 1 open license in the city right now and we don't have anyone, no one's applied for it. And then all these people do also have to get a state license as well.
Yeah.
And then they still get inspected by the state, but their inspections aren't quite as frequent as ours. Any other questions? Thank you for having some.
Do you see, when it comes to other substances, do you see like marijuana or like cannabis or alcohol coming on board with any sort of funding that would help create similar programs, or?
This is more like typical public health programming.
Yeah.
I would be interested in looking at those other ones, but that is certainly like some out of the box thinking, and like other public health departments are not like regulating tobacco, alcohol sales
Yeah.
in their community, but I think that also from talking to the youth, we have a lot of work to do in how this community is selling alcohol.
I've heard so much more about alcohol than.
Oh my gosh, it sounds terrible.
It sounds terrible.
Yes.
Yeah, really.
But I would love to see some of our work in this prevention, right, when we're talking about using tobacco funding to fund prevention, like it's gonna go into alcohol and marijuana use prevention with the youth. Like those are the 3 main substances that the youth tell us that their friends use.
Right.
Or they use.
Right.
Of course, it's always their friends, but.
Yeah. No, me too.
There's piles of blue raspberry shooter bottles that are always piling up in my woods are not coming from
No.
adults. Gross
They're
looking.
everywhere, huh?
Great, well, and even though Alana wasn't here, she created this presentation and did all the research, so.
Thank you.
Good job. Okay. Hand it over to you guys.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thanks.
That brings us to item number 2, which is Lake County Community Planning Development. A continuance of public hearing concerning Lake County on-site wastewater treatment system. Regulations located at 2453 County Road 11A, otherwise known as Alpen Flow. Variance application for non-conforming OWTS owners Sarah and Sterling Mudge of Switchback Limited. This would be led by Lake County Community Planning and Development.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
Training units.
Yeah. I hereby open the hearing for the Alpenflow OWTS variance hearing that was continued from February 19th, 2026. When testimony was heard from staff, the applicant, and members of the public. Procedure to be followed in this hearing will be as follows. The board will disclose any ex parte communications. The county staff will make an initial presentation on new information that pertains to new evidence. The applicant may then make their presentation on new information that pertains to the variance application. After that, any persons either supporting or opposing the application may present evidence on the new information. We may or may not limit, I guess I should decide if we're gonna limit let me read that again. After that, any other persons either supporting or opposing the application may present evidence on the new information. Presentation shall be limited to 3 minutes today. Supporting and opposing witnesses may be questioned by the board. Once questioning is concluded, no further questioning is permitted unless granted by the chair. The applicant may then present any rebuttal evidence. The parties and witnesses are asked not to submit evidence other than the new evidence and not to submit redundant, irrelevant, or cumulative evidence. If someone has already made a point that you wish to make, simply say so. The chair will also require that all comments be made to the board and that there be no dialogue between the applicant and members of the audience. At the conclusion of the evidentiary portion of the hearing, the chair will entertain a motion to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing, and the commission will discuss and weigh the evidence. The Board of Health will then retire from the meeting, and the chair of the Planning Commission will entertain a motion on the application. The motion may take the form of one of the following recommendations: approve the application with no conditions, approve the application with the recommended conditions, approve the application with newly identified conditions, or deny the application. Community Planning and Development shall make a record of any substantial discussion on the motion and include that in the record. The board's decision will be in the form of a finding of fact. Are there any objections to the jurisdiction of this board or to the form or substance of these proceedings? Hearing none, I will now ask that each board member, if you have had any ex parte communications, please disclose those now.
I've had none.
Else has had none? Andy's had none, nor have I. Now the county will make its initial presentation.
Thank you so much. Person in Teams, if you go into Teams, we have just a really limited, go into OneDrive. Oh, I can actually find it in OneDrive,
You go to chat and channels in,
chat and channel.
the chat on the left. You see how it says channels? Go under Board of Health right there, down under BOCC. If you had shared at the top there next to post. If you click on today's meeting, is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, and then go into the packet, and then go to CPD. And then, there we go. Yeah, this is not the one. Okay, grab the right one. Okay. Thank you so much, Board of Health.
So can you just make sure that's shared? Please.
On Zoom.
So then you go to Zoom, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there we go, okay.
No, go down to
Zoom
Zoom,
down in the, yeah, and then share.
just right in the middle.
You're doing great.
You're doing great. You're doing, and then, yeah, then hit right there, you go, perfect.
I figured it out.
Yeah, then you can minimize us and just put it into slideshow.
Of course, it's right on the front.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So the basis of our discussion when the hearing was continued was to gain more information on the availability of electricity to the site. And so we didn't receive any additional evidence from the applicant, but we did look at the Xcel Energy coverage map. The dot there shows the subject property, and the coverage area extends out to the purple boundary of Xcel's coverage area. So that's the information that we were able to locate. That was part of the request for the additional evidence for the continuation. However, we did receive from the applicant on Friday afternoon some information about well access and consumptive use. So we received information that was based on this commercial drinking and sanitary well worksheet known as Form GWS 57. This form is used for exempt wells, meaning parcels under 35 acres, in order to look at the ability for them to change their designation from an in-house use well to a commercial well. So some of those guidelines and the general guidelines were applied by the applicant to their use. So this form is actually meant for smaller parcels. The Mudge parcel is roughly 90 acres. So that's specific to under 35 acre parcels. So regardless of whether this form was the appropriate form or not, we do agree that a commercial use in this location will likely need an odd plan and or a change of use of the well, when a well would be obtained. So we do recognize that though from that information and from the information that we've gained so far, that a well is possible in this area, how, whether it needs to be augmented or a change of use for a commercial operation would be something that would have to be a further investigation by the property owners. But we still remain in the same position. We don't believe that we have found or heard anything that as far as the tent site portion of the property, that it bears any geologic, topographical, access, utility, or engineering condition that would result in the inability to accommodate a conforming system. So the OWTS variance regulation does not provide relief of the cost burden to develop a site. Rather, it specifically prohibits a variance where a conforming system can be accommodated. And so I think there was a question about what does it mean to accommodate? And so we would say that we have no evidence that says from all of those different perspectives or attributes, the site cannot accommodate an OWTS. So we have not made any changes in our findings, and we continue to conclude that we cannot recommend the variance for the vault privies for the tent location. Happy to answer any questions that you may have or turn it over to the applicant.
I don't have any questions. Okay. Thank you, Ann, appreciate that. Now we will hear from the applicant.
Thank you. So yes, on Friday afternoon, we sent staff the two forms, Form 45 and 57. Staff is incorrect. In speaking with DWR directly, I talked through them with each of those. Our 64-ish acre parcel doesn't need the county's exempt letter due to the subdivision, just the 26 acre parcel. So right now we would be pursuing a well on the 64 acre. It is called a commercial exempt well because there has not been a well on site that has been put to beneficial use as of yet. So those are the very two forms that DWR told us to look at. They provide, I hope that you looked at the summary that I provided staff and asked to share with you all. So those are the very two forms, and as you can see, given the lowest estimation of a commercial use or the highest, or given some other gallons per day per user estimation that Sterling had heard staff mention in a previous meeting of 2 gallons. Either way you slice it, we are over the limit. Yeah, we can provide, well, we're over the limit. I don't know what the status of the augmentation plan of the county is, but I sure do know that those are also gonna have limitations. So we felt that this was kind of an obvious thing that we would have loved for an engineer to have brought up to us as well. and showing that, our calculations, based on the range of those numbers, for the flush toilets in the campground, would be well above by tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of gallons. We also want to just reiterate that Sterling has a list of, going through prior variances that y'all have heard and approved and staff responses to those, wanting to highlight kind of the discrepancies in staff, pointing to, opinion on, what accommodation is, whether it's proximity, accessibility, also emphasizing in certain cases that a reason was because they couldn't get a well when they did have a well, or other cases were that, staff seemed to go out of the way to emphasize that it wasn't for sole economic gain. And here we are, being treated pretty differently in that regard. We wanna emphasize that economic gain isn't our sole reason. Our sole purpose is knowing and talking to those in the industry in order to operate that system. We are facing anyone in this climate is facing the challenge of operating a sustainable system, operating a system that is not going to be wasteful, operating a system that's not going to need replaced, in 10 or 20 years down the road and further impose on the operations of our proposed use. Let's see, again, I'm not sure I finished my thought on that. Having talked to industry, folks doing operations of maintenance of these systems and deciding not to use these systems in certain cases, we thought, the limitations with the water, again, that we provided in those calculations, we just wanna emphasize that we're not just saying, we can't do this ever. We deliberately don't want to provide flush toilets to a campground area and set ourselves up for a very challenging operations. Never mind not having the ability to meet the Division of Water Resources restrictions and also look at further development of the site. Do you wanna know?
Thanks all for hearing us out again. I'm here to remind you all of some of the past proceedings undertaken by you as the County Board of Health, with some highlights on some staff reports from the past. Starting with the approved variance for a vault on 4-9 for the Veer property. The staff report cited no running water for the variance requested to be approved. On 11/28/2025, the Shaver property under A, no variance shall be issued where the property can accommodate a conforming OWTS. This property has an existing well, which is way up high on a road that has been claimed by staff as inaccessible and unable to install a system. It is an unmaintained county access road with multiple points of constraint. This is their staff finding. The access to the property significantly limits the ability of a conforming OWTS to be installed, even though it can accommodate with a well that is existing on the site already. We were able to look at this exact engineer report, which was done by 285 Engineering, and their technical justification is the same exact one that we have in our engineer's report. On B, on the same property, Shaver property, no variance shall be issued to mitigate an error in construction involving any element of property improvements. Staff finding no such error exists. However, in C, under solely for economic gain, it highlights, and this is the staff finding, the property does have a well drill. However, it does not have access to electric utilities to run the well. Furthermore, the location of the well is on the northern portion of the property, while the structure is further south on the property and is on a considerable slope. So this goes against B because it is an error in construction involving an element of property improvements, which staff did not find that. On C, it says, no variance shall be allowed solely for economic gain. After staff reported on this, their staff finding, which was, the property is to be used for commercial group camp with occupancy of 8 persons. The property does have a well drilled, however, it does not have access to electric utilities to run the well. Furthermore, the location of the well is on the northern portion of the property, while the structure is further south on the property and is on a considerable slope. The property has limited access by unmaintained county roads and is unable to install electric utilities to run the well. This is the basis of the request, and it is not based upon economic reasons. So at this point in the meeting, Commissioner Lee asked to clarify the statement that this variance request is not solely for financial gain. Torsten responded, the main basis is lack of access and lack of ability to make a conforming system. It's not for economic reasons as to why he can't put it in there. It's the fact that you can't get heavy equipment in there. Also clarified, it's not that it's too expensive, it's not possible or desired. And then Ann chimes in, the findings suggest that the basis of like you coming in and being the sole reason is for the fact that it would be cheaper to go with a non-conforming system. So Torsten is suggesting that the evidence shows that that's not the sole basis of this question. So the specific wording of it is that for more than that, there is going to be, obviously as a group camp, a financial benefit. This is a commercial operation, but it's not the sole benefit. All this can be heard on the 11/18/2025 recording. This backs up the fact that our request is not solely based on economic benefits.
In fact, it might cost us more to pump more often.
Moving on to the next variance in the same meeting, Berger Silver King Group, which is located slightly underneath the Shaver property. Under A, no variance shall be issued where the property can accommodate a conforming OWTS. Again, they cite unimproved roadways, the fact that it goes through US Forest Service and private land, and that limits access to installing a conforming OWTS. No variance shall be allowed for solely economic gain. They talk about, this is their staff finding, it does not have a well or access to install a well. Access for a normal pumping truck or other heavy equipment is limited due to the road conditions. The property has limited access by unimproved roads through private land and is unable to install a well. This is the basis of the request and it is not based upon economic reasons. This is definitely a matter of opinion because I'm not sure if anyone here has driven or operated heavy machinery. I know I have, and you can pretty much go anywhere. This is a suggestion and a staff opinion, not a professional determination. This is also located underneath a property that has an existing well with similar unmaintained roadways. Let's see, on to the next one that was also approved, so 3 different approvals for the variances. In addition, so the next variance, it was the Shiloh property up Tennessee Pass Road, or East Tennessee Pass Road. Under A, no variance shall be issued where the property can accommodate a conforming OWTS. The conforming OWTS would require reasonable access, this is their staff finding, for installing a system. The access to the property via Tennessee Creek Road is narrow and requires a high clearance 4x4. The road travels through both US Forest Service and private land. The access to the property significantly limits the ability of a conforming OWTS to be installed. So their finding is based on, again, opinion, whether a vehicle can get to a place. I know on that Tennessee Pass Road, I've driven a Toyota Previa on that road. And it has been improved since I drove it.
In the last 5 years.
Another point, this property is accessed from the same road that it also accesses the Emma Lynn Hut. The Emma Lynn Hut is located an additional 1.4 miles up a steep 4x4 road off of the East Tennessee Creek Pass, or East Tennessee Creek Road that they cited. The Emma Lynn Hut has a conforming OWTS system. Under C, no variance shall be allowed solely for economic gain. The property is to be used for a private backcountry structure with temporary occupancy. It does not have a well or access to install a well. This is, again, opinion from the staff. I could go on. Our big point is that staff is definitely inconsistent with their staff findings, and it just their opinion of access and them pushing and supporting an OW or a vault variance for a property that has an existing well, and them making their biggest stipulation with us it just doesn't make sense. If you look up in Regulation 43, you'll find a definition of a vault. Vault means a watertight covered receptacle which is designed to receive and store excreta or waste either from a building sewer or from a privy and is accessible for the periodic removal of its contents. If the vault is intended to serve a structure or structures that are projected to generate a domestic wastewater flow 2,000 gallons per day or more at full occupancy, the vault is a domestic wastewater treatment works. Vaults are on-site wastewater treatment systems in general. That is some findings from reviewing staff and reviewing the Board of Health opinions and decisions on various vaults, the 4 that we just listed. In addition, I want to touch on the sheltered site variance. We are requesting that the Board of Health allow the use of the proposed alternative toilets, the Trovolo urine diverting toilet and the Laveo dry flush. You might remember that video of the dry flush. The urine diverting toilet is called the composting toilet due to the fact that should you choose to, you can compost the waste collected. As stated in our variance narrative, Alpenflow staff will dispose of the waste collected and will not be composting. This goes the same for the dry flush system. Under Colorado Regulation 43, the use of alternative toilets is allowed as addressed and was already shared with the clarification for the installation of composting toilets dated June 2025 from CDPHE. To highlight that, it states on the bottom, and this is a CDPHE clarification about composting toilets, the use of other technologies such as composting toilets may actually be beneficial in some of these limited situations. Alternative technologies may also include urine separation and periodic removal of solids for off-site management. In these limited remote locations, the local public health agency may choose to allow composting toilets or other appropriate alternatives. Happy to answer any questions.
Sterling, I appreciate you doing all of the, sorry, Chair.
Go ahead.
Appreciate all of the precedents that you laid out on the Board of Health. How many of those, because I can't keep them on my head, how many of those were backcountry sites? Just curious.
All 4 of them.
Okay.
And they all had dwellings, which is one of the biggest things in structures,
I agree.
which is one of our biggest arguments is that we aren't serving a structure.
Yeah.
And they're allowed.
Like, hang on just a sec. Does anybody else have any questions from you to the presenters, applicant?
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page with the limited use occupancy numbers. The local regulations that we're working with define limited use occupancy as no more than 180 days per year. And no more than 90 consecutive days. Is that something you guys were planning to stay within the boundaries on?
No, so we brought that up at the original meeting of seeing that in staff's report, and that was the first time it had come up in our conversations. And we were pointing out specifically that, do you have this cited?
Limited use
So
occupancy.
in the regulation 1.2, I think the local, right, it says vaults or privies may be allowed for limited use occupancy on a property which cannot accommodate no WTS with soil treatment areas or if the dwelling does not have running water. Limited use occupancy means the occupancy of a structure or dwelling on less than a full-time year-round basis. So we were bringing that up to say this does not apply to us because we don't have dwellings. This is not a residential use. This is a completely different use. There's plenty of language both throughout Reg 43 and the local regs that really address as what have been those past conversations, concerns around residential dwellings. And our use, we'd hope to operate more year-round, 300 days a year, being closed a month on each end of the seasons, meeting comprehensive plan goals.
Okay, cool, thank you for clarifying that and pointing that out.
Anne, is it appropriate to let Torsten, are you gonna respond?
And Andy took care of my comment there about the limited use.
And yeah, we don't have really anything else unless you would like to ask us any clarifying questions or
Okay.
anything.
I don't have any questions, or discussion items, so that could wait, so if you guys don't have any more questions.
Did you all wanna address any of the electricity issues that you brought up last time?
There's electricity in the area off of Half Moon Road.
Uh-huh.
There's no, and we had a meeting with Xcel Energy.
Uh-huh.
They have a different engineer, Ryan, who's based out of Summit County.
I hadn't seen that map, but I noticed that the map that staff showed doesn't cover part of our property of the tent site camping. I don't know if that means that we couldn't extend the service area beyond that, or if I don't know what that means.
I think it just needs to get to the edge of the property and be responsible.
There's the electrical thing as far as staff's opinion that wells and things can't be run due to power alone. There's other sources of energy that can power some things, so that it's a moot point, anything can be done. We can mine a 13,000 foot mountain, if you have enough time and money, you can do anything you want to.
Would you at all like the definition of backcountry at all?
Sure.
Would that be-
Sure.
So backcountry, where these other examples are, we're within a zone district that is defined as the purpose of the backcountry zoning district is to retain the relatively undeveloped character of backcountry areas in Lake County while still allowing for very low impact development consistent with the type of development that historically occurred in the area. Backcountry areas can loosely be defined as more remote areas typified by lack of maintained and improved roads, little to no infrastructure, and very limited or sparse development. Characteristics that may be present include sensitive environmental areas, wetlands, steep slopes, subalpine forest or tundra, remnants of historic mining activity, high ridges and alpine peaks, and areas that provide scenic views. It is the intent of these regulations to allow for a variety of uses for property owner enjoyment that also minimize impacts to the natural environment. The zone district encourages the preservation of open lands that are either privately or publicly owned, managed, leased, or dedicated, that are used for recreational and ecological purposes such as wildlife habitat or open space. I think that's probably a given, but those examples all came from that zone.
I don't think I need to hear anything about like that it's not for solely for economic gain. I think we all sat through the last meeting and heard a lot of reasons why environmentally this option made sense. For me personally, it feels like we are trying to navigate the codes as they are, which is your guys' challenge every day at work, you know? And it felt like, to me, like the temperature in the room was that we wanted to see this thing happen. We were just trying to figure out how to do it within the framework of the codes we're bound to work by. And I felt like we had just gotten down to how is this site not accommodating for an OWTS? And that's really something I'd like to maybe discuss a little bit more. If we've been letting vaults go into other properties that might have some similar aspects or a lot of similar aspects, then why are we unable to figure this one out? Like, it seems.
I would just ask the chair if you wanted to continue to leave the evidentiary portion open of the hearing.
Oh, sorry.
If you wanna have a conversation, we can do that, but let's
Okay,
finish
yeah,
asking
sorry,
questions.
I'm out of order.
That's okay, I just wanted to just mention we haven't closed that yet.
Thank you.
Sure.
And also, I'd like to hear from the public, so would it be appropriate to?
Yes.
Elsa has one more question.
Sarah Sterling, based on the facts that you all provided, can you tell us what you think the total amount of use of water would be for your campground, given your business plan and your anticipated use? Because, here's what I'm asking, you did all this work about, the maximum capacity of a third of an acre foot being able to be pulled from a well. And you said that the amount of 8 gallons of water per day per person, how many people do you anticipate to be able to have on your site?
So,
Like, I'm trying to understand that.
yep, those
Okay.
numbers are in there, 200 people in the campground area, or the 250 people in
Yeah.
the total capacity of the site. I thought that the 8 gallon was like a public search of typical user
Yep.
in general, right? There's the provided 5 to 50 gallon criteria that the division gives, whether you're a church having people in seats or lodging or a restaurant. There's various calculations, and again, either of those push us well above the 108,600 gallons per year. So with the 8,000 gallon, and I'm sorry I didn't print that out, I don't have that.
I mean, I see your various calculations, but it says at the top, 200 customers, or 250 customers, let's just say you're killing it. 250 customers times 300 days, I mean, like, that's not feasible.
Right.
Being at total capacity, and that gets you to 150. So sorry, where am I seeing the where am I missing the actual calculation for how many gallons you think you'd use per year?
There's a line, okay, I think that it's in what was provided to you.
So I'm looking under,
300 days times 200 people.
Yep.
Times 8 gallons per person a day. Is that the one? I think that is it, that's the 480,000 gallons.
yeah, but, I mean, even lodging capacity in this town doesn't go above 50%. So like that's where I'm asking, how much,
So
these numbers aren't accurate compared to like actual anticipated use, that's just like
They're definitely
total
conservative.
use you could do. Yeah, you're not gonna have 250 people 300 days a year, do you hear what I'm, okay,
Yeah, no, absolutely, I mean, that's our argument, we wanna be open 300 days a year.
yeah,
We anticipate the 155 days of like awesome summer weather, tent camping, great. The rest of them providing spaces for van campers, which would be significantly less. And thinking the domes will run year round, but those are separate from the
Sorry.
campground
Yeah.
request.
yeah.
So
Sorry, here's what I'm getting at.
Not answering the question.
I'm looking for occupancy rates. Your anticipated daily occupancy rate over the 300 days a year that you want to be running. Because that's the actual accurate amount of how much water you would potentially be using.
the occupancy rate that we had talked about is the max of 200 for the campground area.
Per night.
That has been what the conversations have been, and we have estimated everything super conservatively within that. I mean, I can run the calculation of 155 days versus
do that.
Yes, do that, she's getting at the fact that we're not gonna have 250 people there,
right.
so let's get it closer to one.
So if we had 8 gallons per person, 200 people times 155 days, which is 50%. If that can give us an average, that is still 248,000 gallons.
Okay, I think that's. I appreciate trying to build things off of max capacity, absolutely, but, right?
That's what we've been asked for to do with, like, that's why we have 4 vaults
Yeah,
for max capacity,
yeah,
for
but what
engineering.
we're trying to do now is not actually talk about the vaults, we're trying
Yep.
to talk about the well and
Yep.
potential on-site water treatment system. So, I guess in my mind, if you can't go above 104,000, 108,000, like what, that's your threshold, right? For whether we can say this site can accommodate that or not. And that max capacity is like not a real number. It's literally not possible to be at 200 customers every day. Even 50% of the time, that's not gonna happen. So that's where I'm like, I actually don't know what number to use, because I don't know how much your business would actually need. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
But I will I mean, in talking to DWR, do you care how many fixtures we will have? Do you care, right, the numbers they give us are what they are asking us to estimate by and
Sure.
prove that we would not draw
Totally,
from the well.
totally, I hear that,
Even at half the humans, it's 180,000,
I hear that.
half the humans have.
Yeah, I don't have any other questions.
Does anybody in the room like to speak? We'll give you 3 minutes, just tell us your name, Stuart.
Good afternoon, my name is Stuart Francone, I'm a resident here in Lake County. I just came today to say I really like this project. I think it does a lot for Lake County, for both residents and tourists that come here. Checks a lot of boxes off in terms of needs we have and takes pressure off other locations. I think we have 2 highly respected applicants in the community with a proven track record of managing and driving big projects to success. And I just think when we have applicants on projects like this, that want to invest in a property and improve it and build something that's good for our county, we need to do whatever we can as a community and as our representatives to support them in doing that. So I'm just here to say that, and I hope you guys will find me in favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thanks, Stuart.
Anybody else?
I think I'm the only other person, and I think for today, I think we can see we have some inconsistency that's challenging to flesh out a little bit. and trying to figure out how to move that forward. I can appreciate all sides of this. We have one other issue that we haven't delved into deeply, which is, and we're starting from another engineer to have, I have some stated concerns around if we have a working septic system in that area that we know will not function 365 days a year, negative 20-degree weather, if it fails, that we have the potential to contaminate the groundwater and not just impact our local area, but some concerns around downstream partners. So that's a concern. I realize we're in a moratorium for this very reason. And it begs the question of what does accommodate, gets back to what does accommodate mean? We haven't looked at a septic system this size to accommodate this situation, like this type of campground in this area. So I think there's just some areas of concern and question, how do we navigate this in a way that sets up consistency, but also looks at the potential impacts downstream if it does fail, without a dwelling, without a structure, without those other things. So that's just a question I would pose for all of us to wonder about as we navigate this, whether it's today or through this process.
Thank you, Tamara. Still got a minute and a half.
I'm good.
Okay, no other public comment. These two are a little bit at odds with each other as far as the process goes, so maybe you can advise me. And the applicant now has an opportunity for rebuttal against the public comment, and there was no against. And so now, it says the board can discuss and weigh the evidence. Over here, it says we need to close the hearing before we do that. Is that right?
Right, and
Okay.
it should, well, not right before that, it's to close the evidentiary portion.
I'll move to close the evidentiary portion of the hearing.
Second that.
To a vote?
Aye.
Aye. Evidentiary portion of the hearing is closed. And now the board will discuss and weigh the evidence.
Okay. Number one, we need to solve if we want to be able to approve this, which is can the site accommodate an OWTS? For an OWTS, that needs water, that needs a well, and it needs electrical. Electric seems like it has, to me, been answered. Electricity is possible to get to the property. The water, which the applicant has brought up, I really appreciate, which is that they can't go over a certain amount of gallons per year.
I would just, Sarah disagrees, and we did not have enough time to get a response from the Division of Water Resources since we didn't get this evidence until Friday afternoon. But we have attempted to get in contact. I had provided this calculation form and this basis to Sarah, I think in August of 25. As something to consider because exempt wells have this ability. I did hear something like considering 26 acres versus 35. So I'm not sure about that, but we would like to, if this is a matter of concern, of if those calculations have a bearing on the well permit, that are substantial to any findings today, we might want to make sure that we get that definitively from the Division of Water Resources about that, if that is something that you want. What we're suggesting in the staff report is that based on our research is that, and we didn't get a response yet from Bryce either about being in the service area for the county's aug plan, but augmenting the use of that well is a possibility from a lot of different varieties as well. So, but we do not have a response officially back from DWR as to that is the most accurate calculation to use.
I mean, they provided from GWS 57.
That's the form right there in
Oh,
front of you.
excuse me,
That's the form that, that calculation is based on. And,
Yeah.
when I was provided that from the division, they told me that was for exempt parcels. So unless we're talking about a parcel under 35 acres, that's what I believe it's relative to. But again, I don't have that directly from the division to apply it to this project. So that's just one thing that we have not had adequate time to review with the Division of Water Resources. I just wanted to mention, but the calculation is correct when I'm talking about whether or not it's applicable to the parcel.
The part of the site.
Yeah, if it's relative only to parcels that are under 35 acres, I was able to do enough research today that I think that it's questionable to believe that the form is applicable to parcels that are over 35 acres.
Sorry, Anne, just let me see if I understand this. You're saying we don't actually know if this could be applicable to something, to a site that is larger, but might have only a part of that site.
That doesn't just matter it's wells are based on the parcel side. The only way that it could be thought of only pertaining to 36 acres of a 90-acre parcel is if the property, let's say 35. Less than 35 is if the property was subdivided. The property has not been subdivided, so you can't apply, I'm only going to use 23 acres of my 35-acre parcel or larger. It would have to be recognized as a 13-acre parcel, which means it was legally subdivided in order to look at a portion of it. Otherwise, you have to look at the entire parcel to the Division of Water Resources. You can't say I'm going to use a certain acreage of a parcel. It's whatever the size of the parcel is as it lies, unless it's been subdivided. And then we would have a very finite position from the Division of Water Resources, not that only a certain acreage is being used.
Okay, but you also haven't had enough time to fully get that.
Correct. I mean,
Okay, just double check.
I did hear Sarah saying that this was only going to apply to a lesser than 35-acre parcel.
I did not say that.
Did not say that.
Point of order,
Yeah.
you've closed the evidentiary record,
Right,
so neither side should be introducing evidence at this point unless you guys want to hear more testimony. If you wanna hear more testimony, you give both sides, I think, a chance to address this issue.
And we would reopen
You
Evidentiary. would you advise us to do that?
It's up to you, if you feel you have enough evidence to make a decision,
I mean, this isn't really evidence, this is more, I guess it is evidence, it's information.
What was the information we provided when we started?
I mean, I think I need more clarification on this because now it's down to the water. And I'm trying to follow the rules, so I would ask that the evidentiary portion be reopened. I'll move that it be reopened.
I'll second that.
To a vote?
Aye.
The evidentiary portion of this hearing is now reopened.
Thank you, Anne.
So happy to
Okay, so then Sarah and Sterling, can you all go back to what is allowing you to apply this rule to a smaller part of your parcel?
Can I ask what form was provided by staff?
This one? The
GW,
GSW 57.
Okay.
It's the same one.
okay.
It's directly the same thing.
So our parcel, which I'm confused because I heard Ann just say it's not subdivided, is subdivided
Okay,
by a county road legally, in which she also, I believe, said in the last meeting that we have had a conversation that we could get water for either side.
okay,
Talking to the Division of Water Resources. If the parcel is below 35 acres
mhm,
and it has been subdivided, and if the county has a rule that you create a legal subdivision by split of a roadway or or as such, then the county provides a letter of sorts proving that yes, we agree, this person should be able to go to the state to get a well. That would apply, in speaking to the Division of Water Resources, Jeff Davis, sorry. I said, we have 2 parcels, we have been told, we understand that we can get 2 wells, correct. Your 1 parcel is above 35 acres. So you are eligible, you don't need a special exemption from the county in order to get a well. The well is called a commercial exempt well. That is the name of it. The 26 acre parcel, approximately, needs the letter from the county and then a well. We could get a well on each portion of the land. We don't currently, we would desire a well on the 26 acre parcel at the moment, but maybe we would do that in the future. Right now, we're talking about the primary use on that 64 acre parcel.
64.
Yep, thank you.
So the east side of, 65.
So the east side is 65, all one contiguous parcel.
Yep, approximately, yep.
Okay. I would agree with what Sarah's saying as far as it created a legal subdivision of the 26 acre parcel, which would then make that form relative to the 26 acres.
We're not talking
That
about
form is
the
relative to any commercial exempt well that you are requesting. The piece that is needed for the 26 acre as a special exception is the county or the jurisdiction saying, yes, this parcel, because it's below 35 acres, has been subdivided prior to 72 and should get an additional special exemption to get a well on the 26 acre parcel.
Yes.
And will you please respond?
So the 26, under 0621, it does create an exempt subdivision for the 26 acres. The 26 would then be eligible, we do this all the time. We confirm to the Division of Water Resources if the parcel, we have to give them an exemption because from land use, from subdivision regulations, anything that's under 35 acres. And so under a resolution, we said any parcels that are divided by designated county roads become an exempt subdivision. So the 26 acre parcel has 2 options. One, it could have an exempt in-house use well, or the flip side of that is an exempt commercial permit, as long as it doesn't exceed the 108,400, I think, gallons per year. So when we have exempt parcels that can either have an in-house or a commercial exempt well that's under 35 acres, those are the 2 options that are available. And so that's why we use this form that I put in Sarah and had mentioned that that parcel could potentially fall under that category. So I agree with what Sarah's saying for the 26 acres.
And we're talking about the 64 acres, and that cannot be applied
So
for
the
an
60, yes, so the 64 acres is a different situation. That is not an exempt subdivision.
Hey Sterling, if you don't mind, just let her finish.
Because it's over 35 acres. Senate Bill 35 requires subdivision regulations on anything that's under, and so that's why it is not recognized as a parcel outright. So the parcel on the other side is the one that we called today, or we've been trying to reach the division again today to all the information that I can find from the site. And when I provided the information to Sarah in August of 2025, I told her this is a form that we use for parcels that are under 35 acres. And so I was contacting them to find out if there was any ability with a bigger sized parcel to realize the same type of conceptive use. And I did not get that information back from them yet. So, but we routinely use this on anything that's under 35 acres.
So it's kind of a moot point, because we're talking about the 64 acres, which is use by, they have a well, they can get a well because they're over 35 acres. We're spending all this time talking on the 26 acres, really has no bearing on what the whole, it's a separate parcel.
Right, we did hear though, I wanna honor what the applicant has said in bringing in their evidence, so we wanted something directly from the division to provide to you today. And so we're bringing this forward as information that we have, but as I mentioned in the staff report, that with the limited amount of time of evidence coming in on Friday, Jeff's out today, I think he returns tomorrow, this is automatically being email response. So we just didn't have anything directly from the division on that. All the information on the DWR site indicates that it is handled differently than exempt parcels. Or parcels under 35 acres that have either gone through subdivision or have this exemption that allows them to be exempt from subdivision regulations.
Would it potentially change the consumptive use allowance?
Whatever their estimates are, these guidelines may be very similar guidelines for them to establish consumptive use straight across the board. It's just whether or not this is the type of permit that would be allowed. Got it. If your well use would be something different.
Thank you. Okay.
Would you like to respond to that? Anything you'd like to
I
add to
think
that?
we're arguing different things perhaps, but it sounds, if I'm understanding this correctly, staff is saying that Form 57 doesn't apply to our 64 acres. I'm providing that, having had a conversation with DWR, I don't have that in writing from an email from DWR, that it does apply because it is a commercial exempt well. It is not exempt in the fact that it is a under 35 acre parcel, but this is what this is called. So I'm confident that DWR would respond and say that Form 57 and 45, both, as I have been instructed, apply to our 64 acre parcel and our 26 acre parcel. Should we choose to get a well on our 26 acre parcel, the additional information that we need is the county as the jurisdiction authorizing and verifying that we do have a subdivided 91 acre parcel, and this 26 acres should also be eligible for this commercial exempt well.
I'm curious how this bears on the
And the
evidence and what we're weighing here. I mean, we're trying to weigh whether you can get water, whether there's enough, and we're talking about 26 acres. So I'm kind of confused about why we're
I
talking.
think that the 65 acres, if I heard correctly, one of the stipulations was that there was no pre-existing well and there's no structure. Is that what DWR was saying to you guys
There's no
about?
I think the confusion is that the name of this well would be a commercial exempt well. Whether or not it's a parcel above 35 acres or below 35 acres, it is still called a commercial exempt well.
Okay, but the point is you can get water. How much can you get? Is it enough to run your campground, run your nightly visits, and run the wastewater treatment system?
No, because the limit, because we don't have a well put to prior beneficial use on the property, so this would be a new well, so there should be two paragraphs that you have there that say no well, new well, no water consumptive use. I'm
Before
sorry,
72, yeah.
before 72, that is what we would need. Limitation is 108,600 gallons a year.
And I think, and that we could possibly augment that, so we would have to go through an augmentation, possibly purchase more shares, water shares, and try and augment that use. It's possible to get the well, and so I don't think we can use that. Well, we're in the question phase here.
I have no more questions. I might have them in a second, but for now I have no more
We
questions.
can reopen
Exactly.
after we close.
You might hear from me again. Andy, do you have any more questions for now?
I think when I was speaking a little out of order was kinda where my head is at on this.
Okay.
And just,
Then I'm gonna move to close the evidentiary portion again.
I'll second that.
To a vote?
Aye.
Aye. So the evidence portion is now closed. We will move on to, sorry. Evidentiary portion of the hearing is now closed. And now, we can discuss, right? This discussion portion? Okay. This is the discussion portion, and I guess this is just for us. And, are we allowed to ask staff questions?
I think generally when you close the evidence, you close the evidence.
That's the end.
If you're asking sort of clarifying questions about the evidence is one thing, but it's hard to draw that line
Sure.
versus a clarification versus introducing new evidence.
And what about asking you specific legal questions? Is that better done at a later time?
Well, it would depend on the question, you know, if it's sort of procedural stuff, I'm sure probably happy to answer it. If you want specific legal advice, I think we probably need to have an executive session.
Okay. Well, Matt was nice enough to look at this in depth and give us a few options. And what sticks out to me is what I said in the previous meeting was that it opens us up to some liability of people just like you that want to do this, and we can't meet that statutory regulation of approval of a variance because you know, we don't feel like the burden of proof is strong enough. And so, I'll just say again, I think it's great. I really would like to see you guys do this. But we don't wanna get into legal trouble. The governing legal framework is really difficult to navigate. And all the evidence that you presented are all on backcountry parcels, so you know, I don't think we did anything wrong in approving those variances. Sterling, are you?
I don't see.
Wait a second.
We're not talking.
We're not talking, I'm just gonna ask you to please be quiet. It's hard for us to discuss when you all are talking amongst yourselves. If you wanna step out and talk, you can do that. But it's hard for us, and if, you know, if you don't wanna listen to us, it's hard for you to hear us when you're talking amongst yourselves, so I'd like to maintain some order. So, I mean, I could go through some of these, or we could share the legal framework with you, but basically, I'm concerned about our liability, just as I was in the previous meeting. The water is a new thing. But, you know, I'd like to see the regulations change instead of us trying to bend over backwards to make this happen. I'd like to focus on changing the regulations, which we could do in the upcoming code adoption. We could change these and get some boundaries around these kind of projects, because we need them, we want them. We don't want to get sued, we don't want to get overturned by the courts, we don't want other people coming in and saying, you did it for those guys, now how dare you not do it for us, this is a very similar project. So that's my position then, and that's my position now, that we don't want to get, you know, we can't be inconsistent. And as much as we want to do that, as much as I'd like to say yes, I don't think I can.
Andy, you've been pretty quiet, you wanna share just your thoughts even?
I felt like we were down to the WTS, and I feel like with what I have in front of me, it does come down to making an explicit factual determination regarding whether the property can accommodate a conforming OWTS. And to me, accommodate sounds like it doesn't, because there's environmental risks, there's more problems with a conforming OWTS that we had public testimony on during the last public meeting that strongly convinced me that a conforming OWTS on this property was really not a good idea, but not only that, that there were some legitimate risks involved with it. I think Tamara also touched on that. So this does not feel like, it feels like we should be able to figure this out without exposing ourselves to too much risk. I'm a little frustrated with why we can't. I do understand we need to be very clear and concise in our decision making, and that it needs to follow these codes that we have in front of us. And given those, I personally, sitting in this chair, feel like it's my belief that the conforming OWTS is more problematic than the all privies.
Well, there's problems with everybody's system. Everybody's system can fail. Second homeowner systems can fail. Under regulation 43.4N5 establishes mandatory limits on the Board of Health's authority. If any prohibition applies and the applicant has failed to establish why it does not apply, the board may be exceeding its jurisdiction and abusing its authority by granting the variance.
Andy, can I ask a quick question? I have been grateful for this time between the first hearing and the second hearing, or whatever, continuance of the hearing, because it's been important for me to be able to reflect, understand our constraints, the laws that we have to follow, our role as Board of Health versus our other roles in these seats. And I agree, I'd love to be able to make this work. My question for you is, it sounds like, to me, what you're saying is that the use of the site can't accommodate an on-site water treatment system. How is it that the site cannot accommodate an on-site water treatment
The
system?
location of this site, in my opinion, is a lot different, a lot more sensitive, being right there on the creek. If there are failures, which, we've listened to why an OWTS system doesn't really make sense in this spot, and I agree with all of it, why it doesn't make sense right there. And the idea of a failure in that spot, in that area, just seems like a lot more problematic than somewhere not next to a a prized natural resource area that this county relies on. The river right there, it seems like there's a little bit of an exception to this property compared to something up on a dry hill in that country, So, to me, I don't think that the risk of an OWTS system failing in this spot, that seems hugely, immensely more problematic to me than an OWTS failing up on a dry south-facing Pine Hill or wherever, some of the other places we could prove. So,
I think the question is not that if we should make them do it or not, it's if the legal question is if they can do it. And I don't think it's been proven that they can't, not that it should. So my statement is that we should make it legal so that they can do it, because I think we all agree it's a great idea. They shouldn't be required to do the system. A vault toilet it's an obvious better system in this case. Every Forest Service campground has one. They're up at the soccer field. It's pretty obvious that it'd be a way better system, but we're not talking about, it should be, we're talking about, can it? The legal question,
can it accommodate it or not?
Well, then I think we're gonna get into the definition of the perception of accommodate versus what can be done. And really, you know, anything can be done with enough money and enough time and resources. There's no, you know, we're just accommodate versus what can be done is, there's really a lot of gray area in there. And that's where I think we're trying to dance our way through the margins of.
Wow, I'm reading it really differently. I mean, I agree with Matt, like the default of our code should be that this is allowed based on what the applicant is proposing, but it's not. And so the number one, and hence the moratorium, blah, blah, blah. The number one, like, we only have 4 criteria for a variance. This is not the default, this is the saying, hey, this is the one time we're gonna say, no, you don't have to do this. Our code says you have to do this, we're saying you don't have to do this because you meet these 4 things. Like, that's what we're talking about, we're not talking about should the code be different and accommodate, like, that's why I think it's important to say, can the site get all of the things necessary to have on-site water treatment system? Like, if this were a residence, could the site accommodate an on-site water treatment system? Could it accommodate that if it was a residence, this land?
Again, I'm just trying to point out that any site that we have already approved vault toilets on potentially can, depends on how much money, time, resources you're gonna pour into a property, anything can be done.
But Andy, but also to the point of creating precedent, like next door, if somebody buys a big lot next door and they're like, hey, we wanna do 300 sites and we wanna do vault toilets, whatever. You guys said that this applicant can do it, why can't we?
We're gonna have a whole nother list of criteria for that, and if they don't check all the boxes, then they
It'll
won't
be
get
the
approved.
same boxes unless we
It's the same boxes.
But it'll be a different property, it won't be the same situation, you know, we're taking things on a case-by-case scenario here. And I feel like we're getting bogged down in this minutia and detail, and it feels like we're in this gray area, and I don't know why we all see something that should happen and we're taking a really conservative tack on this gray area that feels to me like, to me, I'm not speaking for the board, I'm just saying this feels like a slam dunk to me, and I really don't think that our like exposure risk is gonna be the same for every single person that comes in this room, has the testimony, has the presentation on record, the evidence that they've got, that I've seen, tells me that this site checks all the boxes for me. That's where I'm at, and I think, you know, if we disagree, we disagree. This seems like the ability for this site to accommodate no WTS feels a little beyond reasonable. It feels like it's a stretch, more of a stretch than, you know, I guess, you know, I'm not gonna stumble over my words anymore. It feels like this shouldn't be as controversial to me as I think it is in our conversations. But that's just me.
I don't think that the like value of this project is controversial in any way.
No, I'm just saying the idea that it can support no WTS. It's accommodating for no WTS.
And how do you think that it can't?
I think that we heard enough on record, public testimony, in the reports, all the evidence presented shows me that no WTS is extremely problematic in this area. Something that is a serious environmental concern to me does not fall under the definition of accommodating. So I have serious concerns that no WTS is more of a problem here than a vault privy, which doesn't mean that a no WTS, to me, this property accommodates it. seems like it's a problem to put one there, so
Because of the use of the property.
because of the evidence that we've been presented.
Because of the use of the property. Do you see the difference? Where it's like, because of the way that they're proposing the property be used, then what you're arguing is that it can't accommodate. But if it were a different use, that property could potentially, you're saying
It wouldn't
this
matter
place
how it was
should
used.
never, ever, under any circumstances, have an on-site water treatment system.
Okay, yeah, I guess in that sense, yeah, it's not being used in the coldest months in winter, when there are gonna be problems. It's not being, there's no structure there to house the sensitive components that are gonna be needed.
I mean, obviously you would build some sort of structure that would warm your pipes.
I currently don't see any house or any large structure in the plans.
No, I'm just saying, but you
So-
would, if you were to build a toilet that was warm, like at the community field, that's not an on-site water treatment system.
That's involved after the soccer fields,
No, it's not.
the community field.
Community field,
Uh,
it's not a ball toilet,
which toilet are you talking about?
the ones
Next to the playground.
next to the playground,
That's not a golf toilet.
no,
Oh, it's probably connected to the sewer system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway, I'm just saying, you'd warm it.
But it's not apples to apples, and that's why we're sitting here, is because we get these cases where every property is unique, every location is different, and they all have different needs, and we have to weigh what we know of these properties. You know, the risks that are involved with failure, you know, if a failure happens next to a playground, that's pretty bad. If a failure happens in a sensitive watershed area, then, you know, there's a whole different set of concerns I have with that.
Yeah, I guess maybe, sorry, don't interrupt, you go ahead.
The industry, the statement from the industry, person who works in that industry was also really illuminating for me about the problems presented with the OWTS in this situation, this property. I felt like that was important, and I think that was, you know, I wish I could pull that up on a recording from the last meeting and replay that right now, but that to me was almost just in itself enough reason not to. But I think there's a handful of reasons for me personally sitting in this chair, not speaking for the entire board, but why I see it that this property doesn't accommodate the OWTS.
Matt, would it be appropriate for me to read portions of your legal opinion?
No,
Okay.
I prefer you not to do that to public, yes.
Not your opinion, but you laid out.
I think if you guys wanna get legal advice, we should recess to an executive session.
Okay. I would like to just reiterate that approving this opens us up to litigation. It also opens us up to people right next door saying, you did it for them, and now you have to do it for me. And if you don't do it for me, we'll sue you in court. It just places liability on the county that opens us up to litigation. And I think the path forward is to change the code, not bend over backwards for this project.
When you say right next door, do you mean like next door here or next door to them over there?
Next door to them, right next door, I'm sure there's several parcels, maybe that whole area should be campgrounds, you know, their parcel is probably the last one that can get electricity. Like Sterling said, you can do an OWTS with solar panels and battery systems, so all I'm saying is that we have to protect the county, and we have to do it in the best interest of the county. And we also want to do it in the best interest of the community and our constituents, and in this case, I just think that we need to change the rules, and maybe that takes us to the end of the moratorium, and in the summer they come back, and we say, we're happy to tell you, the rules have been changed, we put a bunch of parameters around it, including where these can be, what the zoning is, how many people per night, and then we are safe. What do you say?
I mean, Andy, I gotta say, having worked at Outward Bound, similar area, similar topography, similar environmental concerns, like right on Rock Creek. and it's not used year round, water treatment plant, we used on-site water treatment systems. And so I know that they're possible and the area can accommodate. And I haven't gotten just want you to know, I have not gotten the evidence to show that water and electric can't be gotten to the site that would support. I hear your argument. I think this is one of the ways in which government can be really BS. And I don't like upholding these systems, but this is the role I'm playing right now, and currently I can't say that it doesn't, the site does not accommodate an on-site water treatment system. The use might not be able to, I thought that was really well argued, but the land itself can, in my opinion, based on the evidence. We can keep talking about it though if you want.
Well. Are either of you interested in an executive session to get legal advice on this? Or, to me, it's cut and dry, we gotta change the rules. I'm really sorry, but we gotta change the rules. I'm not gonna say it again, I've said it twice.
I agree, I don't understand how I would be able to say yes to this based on our current rules. And I would like that changed as soon as possible.
Let's change it immediately. And if we change that portion of, or do we have to
I would
wait
really
to?
like to give the moratorium the space to,
Okay.
look at this from a county-wide lens. And but yes, I mean, I think that's the basis of bringing the moratorium forward. So but we can discuss that more, as we can revisit the scope of the moratorium and maybe we could front load some of that scope of work. So we can look at that, but I'd like to keep it kind of within the moratorium work to look at this holistically for all of the different uses and how we look at the infrastructure piece.
I have a staff question. Matt, should I ask to open the evidentiary?
What kind of question?
I'll ask you and you tell me if I need to open it. When we approve a variance, is that connected to the land forever? Or does it depend on use of the land? Can I ask that question?
I think you can ask that question.
Okay.
So typically, like when we grant a variance on an OWTS, that typically happens pretty immediate, because there's a plan in place. When we grant a variance from a land use standpoint, we typically put that if you don't exercise the right to use the variance within 3 years, it goes away.
Sure.
Because variances that run through land use are really specific to one concept design. A variance on an OWTS is usually pending an immediate kind of structure license or a use or something such as that. So infrastructure variances typically happen very quickly. But once you put those in place, then that's the infrastructure that's been allowed. Does that also?
So it can kind of run with the land is what she's saying, but it does, if use changed or there was development, like, if, for whatever reason, it's probably never gonna happen, but if Leadville sanitation comes within a certain parameter, they would have to connect, so it's kind of yes, but really doesn't run with the land forever.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay. I'm just gonna start with the easy part. I make a motion to approve the variance request to allow composting and dry flush toilets as submitted by the applicant for 2453 CR 11A, Up and Flow Campground, as proposed in the application. With the following conditions. Number one, Prior to operations, the applicant shall work directly with OWTS Health specialist to ensure the Alpenflow campground composting toilets meet Colorado Regulation 43.12E composting toilet standards. 2, prior to operations, the applicant shall develop and provide community planning and development through the OWTS Environmental Health, a maintenance and monitoring plan for the composting and or dry flush toilets. And number 3, the applicant shall consider self-contained hand washing stations to divert wastewater from discharging onto the ground.
I will second that.
And further find it consistent with Colorado Regulation 43 and Lake County OWTS regulations as evidenced in the staff report dated February 19th, 2026.
Is that 4?
No, that was just conclusion of the statement.
I will second that.
Before we go to a vote, let's clarify that this is just for the composting toilets on the upper portion
Correct.
of the campground,
Just the 10 sites, not the vaults.
just tent sites.
Yep.
And you move to approve that
With conditions.
with conditions. Andy seconded. You want to talk about it before we go to the vote?
I don't have anything to discuss.
To a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was easy, you're right, that was easy.
Mm-hmm. So I did it.
Andy, would you like to make a motion on the second part of that? Or I'll call for a motion, how's that?
I would call for a motion. I think I'd need 15 minutes of executive before I make any motions.
We have to notice an executive. So do you wanna call for a
Ready to recess this meeting.
recess?
Yeah, make a motion to recess for, how long do you guys?
Has to be at least 48 hours. We have to notice it for I know, I'm just saying, the recess would be, I guess we could recess till tomorrow. No, we can't, cause we have to notice it within 24 hours.
I mean, I can put an agenda up. For sure, that's what we would like to do, I can post an agenda and something,
But our meeting would start at 5:30. If we can do that.
Yeah, I think that's what I need. So, when do we need to, so I need to make a motion to recess this. This isn't a postponement or
We
a
have to recess it,
continue?
Yeah,
Yeah, recess it or table it, yeah.
and that's why I'm saying 48 hours, because it'll take,
Yeah,
for executive session has to be noticed, and then we can't come back.
and would that also give us some time to get some feedback from DWR? Confirming some of the things
Have to
we've,
reopen the evidentiary hearing, but yeah, potentially
I know how to
you
do
could
that.
direct staff to do that.
yeah, I don't, the temperature in the room doesn't make me feel like I should make a motion to approve this. So I would think it'd be easier for everyone involved to just table this until we can take an executive session and we hear back from DWR. So I don't know the exact, I wanna make a motion to table this TBD and in that time, schedule an executive session and see if staff can get feedback from DWR about water usage.
Awesome. I'll second that.
To a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
And I have a question about if we don't table to a date certain, continue the hearing to a date certain, we're not to renotice. So the public hearing, because
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to continue the public hearing to a date certain, you know, you could do it 7 days or an hour or something, I don't know what that would be, but yeah.
so we have to start looking at schedule and see what's possible for the board if you're gonna continue it. Otherwise, we would have to send out notices to the adjacent property owners again, repost and.
So we
So
wanna do that.
Let's,
We have a planning commission meeting next Monday at 4 o'clock. Is that on?
Yes, it is.
let's move it to a date certain then. I am fully booked this week.
We back on to the other sessions we have on Tuesday.
It's too late. Okay, how about,
Or is it too late?
it's too late for the executive session. To
Because we
tack
don't
the,
have 24 hours.
I'm at next Tuesday.
That's what I heard.
Next Tuesday.
Sorry, cause you already have those other two.
are those tomorrow?
Oh yeah,
Those are tomorrow.
You're right, that's right.
You?
What about next Tuesday at 4 o'clock? We have meetings all day.
Monday?
Meetings open till 4, planning commission at 4.
Can we do it, can we move till 2, can we do it at 2 o'clock on Monday?
Does that give us enough time?
On the 9th.
Or Tuesday the 10th after our work session?
We're trying to figure out how fast we can hear back from DWR about some of these.
My automatic response from Jeff said, I think that he's gonna be back in the office tomorrow, so,
Can we move it till Tuesday the 10th?
10th's a little better.
Does that work for you guys? Tuesday the 10th,
yeah.
2 p.m.?
What time?
Well, we have a work session until,
As of right
currently
now,
scheduled till 4.
your work session only has events until about 2:30, 3? So,
Talking Monday, you're talking Tuesday.
I'm asking for
Yeah,
10.
it's for 5 hours.
Oh.
I'm trying to figure out a
It's
time
not
next
Like
week.
Tuesday.
so I would suggest something more around 2:33, just to be sure of when the other work session items are due.
What date now? We're talking Tuesday?
No, March-
Tuesday the 10th,
March 10th, Tuesday, right at the end of our work session.
yeah.
It's 3 o'clock on the 10th.
3 o'clock on the 10th, as of now is open, yes.
Is that all right with you guys?
3 o'clock on the 10th? Okay. Do you wanna amend your motion?
Instead of, I will amend my motion to change to be determined that we will table this until Tuesday, March 10th at 3 p.m.
Second it.
To a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's been tabled. This concludes today's portion of the public hearing. Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Really Nelson.
Oh, I knew that.
You better